I'm not really surprised with what Hollywood does anymore, but I am surprised when they have the gall to admit it. That's how we get Dungeons and Dragons coming out and bragging before the release of their movie that we intentionally emasculate leading men. The writing team reveal how they intentionally humiliated the leading men in the film and put women on the front lines, and boy, were they successful in that.
On your knees.
Chop it off, let's do it.
Oh, we got him now!
You know what? I'm thinking there are probably sharper stairs somewhere else.
But surely it's not all bad. The writers did an interview with Variety. They spoke about how an audience doesn't need to be spoon-fed, always pushing to make things 20% smarter, and how they love Monty Python. And they're imitating Monty Python in the movie. It might not be quite the same tone, but they think Monty Python very successfully made intelligent absurdity, and that's what they're trying to get across in the fantasy genre. So this movie may despise its male characters, but at least it's got comedy going for it.
We're thieves, and unleash the greatest evil the world has ever known.
Sounds lovely.
Quite the opposite.
I know I was being ironic.
I find irony is a blade that cuts he who wields it most especially.
Oh, that was it, was it? Yes, it turns out the Dungeons & Dragons movie is very much like an onion. It's got multiple layers, and the more you peel away, the more you want to cry. In fact, this movie is so damaging, it's even reaching forward to affect D&D itself as the tabletop game. They're even balancing the game around what they decided to do in the movie. By changing one of the D&D classes, we've altered druids. Don't worry, now we're wrecking the lore, and druids can turn into owlbear monstrosities too. But all of this is par for the course, isn't it? Hollywood destroying things, making something that's awful. Oh, I'm so shocked at that. No, Hollywood has been doing this kind of thing for decades. They've been attacking masculinity for decades. It's got worse as time's gone on. They've got more obvious about it as time's gone on. But at least they try and dress it up in what they think is a socially acceptable manner, or make some vague attempt to imitate a moral human being. We didn't get that with D&D. In that vein, I was really struck by Honor Among Thieves that the lead female characters are at the forefront of the action scenes, and the men, they're often hanging back. And he said, yeah, we just love emasculating the leading men because it's funny, fun, and fresh. Oh yeah, that's never been done before. I can't think of any explanations at that at all off the top of my head for decades, but let's use some recent ones just to show how fresh it is. Yeah, of course we had Velma.
I am so sick of rich guys like you, not only not realizing how much is handed to them, but still thinking they're the victims when they mess everything up because of their lazy entitlement and fragile egos.
My ego is not fragile!
And there was She-Hulk.
Especially your anger.
Here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. When I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult or literally get murdered. I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you.
Oh, and there was this guy. Do I have to explain what's wrong with this guy? And I don't even just mean his clothes. There was the famous sucking on worm secretion episode.
A mother gives birth. Her body makes milk for the child.
Stop, please stop.
It's nourishment. It's the part of himself that he gives to us.
But no, you're definitely fresh and not embracing the rotting corpse of an ideology Hollywood has been desperate to make into reality for decades. In fact, the only funny and fresh thing that you managed with this is that you had the gall to say it out loud. You dared to just tell everyone that that's what we're doing. On the one hand, I admire that you had the gall, and on the other, I'm like, you had the gall to say that. It just shows how far the Overton window is shifted in California that you dare say that, and not only think you'll get away with it, but don't even see anything wrong with the comment in the first place. To you, this is normal. That's the strange thing.
We must not trigger the mechanism.
I may have triggered the mechanism, so sorry.
You have been surrounded by this for so long, subjected to it yourself for so long, that you just assume it's a normal way of being. It's funny, it's fun, of course it's not meant seriously. Oh, that's why we just love humiliating them, but absolutely won't touch the other characters in the film.
Aren't you sick of failing?
But what happens when you get scared? What happens in California where all of your belief systems are directly contradictory to the rest of the world? You end up with very strange comments. Like, oh yeah, we love emasculating men. Oh, it's funny, but absolutely not woke. No, it's nothing to do with that. No, definitely not that. We're going to repeat it in multiple different questions. We're going to keep emphasizing it. Goldstein 100% understands how repulsive this idea is to customers, and yet decided to make a film based on it anyway. Simultaneously trying to force the ideas into the movie while separating them from it. To go, no, it's definitely not that. It's not that. That's not the reason why. It's not that we're woke. No. I mean, all of our beliefs and all of our actions absolutely 100% line up with that. But no, don't worry. I mean, it swims like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, but it's not a duck. No, it's actually a dog. that we painted to make look like a duck. Just like you can get into Hollywood and pretend you're good scriptwriters.
Aren't you sick of failing?
Now, they do say they like to make their male heroes be challenged. Obviously not the female ones. Why would we do that? No. But the male ones, they definitely should be challenged. I think they mean mentally challenged, but they don't say here, so I'm not sure. They can't simply be heroic because that would be too masculine.
Follow me to the orifice.
The orifice?
I'll go last.
In fact, don't you understand? Real men would be comfortable in their own skin enough to portray themselves in a vulnerable light. Real men would allow themselves to be emasculated because that's what real men do. I mean, you are having masculinity here defined by two people who work in Hollywood in California who seem to have been put down and humiliated so much in their entire life that they just think it's normal. So much so that they love doing it because it's just funny and fun. We're not woke though, we're not woke. We wouldn't want to be that. Now the issue is, throughout their casting process on multiple films, they have met movie stars who don't want to be humiliated, destroyed, and emasculated to the point where you just make them look like absolute fools. Which is shocking to them, because to them, they think that's the most fun that you can have.
Aren't you sick of failing?
Because what could be more fun for an actor than being targeted, humiliated, and dragged down simply on the basis of his dangly bits, all by a writer whose last example of masculinity was someone who was doing acts so unspeakable to his wife, it would make an adult star go dizzy and have to steady themselves on the couch. Because obviously they can't name them here, but there were definitely at least two of them who just didn't want to make themselves look foolish or less than. Not like Chris Pine. No, Chris Pine is hyper aware of that, and he wants to make himself look as bad as possible. These are people who think the concept of being a real man means that you've got to make yourself look less than everybody else around you, and they're a perfect example of that is Chris Pine. Well, I put it to you that the reason Chris Pine doesn't mind getting emasculated, humiliated, and targeted in front of his co-stars in order to make them look better, it just happens so often. That boat sailed a long time ago. Chris Pine really wanted the Dungeons & Dragons movie to kill his superhero image. You think you had a superhero image, do you? Oh no, this is the image I had of you. You want to talk about the emasculation of Chris Pine? Well, Harry Styles did that a long time ago. Because even with the event itself, what really makes it bite is that it was Harry Styles doing it to you. He's hardly a superhero's greatest danger, is he? No, Chris, I 100% understand why you specifically weren't concerned about absolutely being humiliated on screen just so you could lift up the women in the movie. Which is strange in itself, by the way. The fact that you thought they couldn't even go through the movie on their own. No, the only way it was physically possible to make them look good is if you humiliated everyone else around them. Is that, like, do you think that's a problem that you have personally? Because I do. Because obviously, at least in the current set of D&D, you can have things like female barbarians that are just as good as the males in fighting. So I have no problem with Michelle going around and kicking everyone's ass. That's fine. He still felt the need to drag everyone else down, though, because I have no problem with her doing that. I think that's fine. But you don't, which is why you had to drag everybody else down. You thought if other people were equivalent to her, then it would make her look less than. And you can't have that. No, you're all for other people looking foolish or less than in order to be a real person. But you don't apply that logic to everybody, do you? Your actions prove that you wouldn't be able to take Michelle seriously if everyone else around her was equally as capable. You can come out and say whatever you want, but it's your actions that reveal what you truly think. And the movie's made some good decisions, like they didn't go down the Jumanji route, because at the end of the day, role-playing tabletop is all about trying to recreate that world in the first place. And so when you move into a medium that can actually create it, it seems like a waste just to limit it by what you had in the first place. I think the point of D&D is to try and pretend you're part of a real world, not a fake one. It defeats the object. But this is a movie about D&D, a company willing to rewrite their rule sets specifically for a movie. A company which has famously had sensitivity readers go through their back catalogue and start changing and banning old lore that they think just isn't acceptable in the current time, despite there being absolutely nothing wrong with it in the first place. This is a company who no doubt would 100% back the beliefs put forward in this movie. Beliefs and ideas that the writers are so confident in bragging about, they'll just say it openly, say it's because it's funny and fun, and prove they have absolutely no knowledge of the current entertainment industry when they think it's fresh, and yet are so desperate to distance themselves from the very ideology which created their reason for doing this in the first place. If they think that those two ideas aren't linked, that their perception of reality, how they form their opinions about what is acceptable and what real men are, haven't been influenced by the environment they're living in. They're simply goldfish in a tank who can't even see the walls. But there's a whole world outside that fish tank of different people, individuals who have different worldviews and moralities. People who the writers think we should just humiliate and put down because that just proves if they get offended by it, they're actually less than us. The cry-bully gaslighting tactic of attacking someone and when they defend themselves, so that the defense itself is somehow proof of their guilt. It's incredibly transparent. Everyone knows what you're doing. And yet for some reason people think they're oh so clever when they use it. You're trying to spin not standing up for yourself and being spineless as a virtue, also that you can continue to attack people who you don't like. I'm not surprised that you found actors who want absolutely nothing to do with you. People who read your script, listened to you, your beliefs and ideas, and thought, I'm staying well away from that. I've seen all of this before and I know where it leads. People who are so arrogant that they think they can imitate Monty Python when what you actually have in reality is this.
I don't want to see you die, which is why I'm going to leave the room.
The writers think those first big stars turned them down because they weren't confident enough in themselves, when really, it was because they weren't confident enough in the writers. Writers who don't even think you should take D&D seriously, who see it all as a bit of a joke. Because sure, you can have comedy, funny campaigns in D&D, but you can also have very serious ones, where the entire aim of it is to recreate a new world and to be part of it, which is the whole point of entertainment, escapism. And yet the writers don't even understand that. They can't grasp the concept. They just see D&D as ridiculous, because you've got literally a brain with 4 legs, and to them, that means you can't do anything serious. They just think you can't get too goofy with it, because that'd be giving it a disservice. But why would you ever take it seriously? Personally, I think you can have comedy movies and serious movies in D&D, but I think if you can't comprehend why some people would take the IP seriously, then it's probably an IP that you shouldn't be touching, because you can't appreciate it for what it is. But then again, neither the company that own it in the first place. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe, more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.